How we doing? Right, this is going to be quite a quick one this evening. I'm going to get off and watch the football for about 7:45. So what I just wanted to do was to reiterate again the facts of motion, and that being that an applied pressure is required in order to achieve acceleration and motion of any object. There's a lot of misunderstanding, and as always in the class, there's some people who are always slow in the uptake, particularly when we're dealing with cult zealot type characters who actively deny reality. There's also others who seem to just not want to get it. A particular case was the other evening. I had stumbled across a YouTuber who used to be known as Jamie Brown on here. I had a wee scan through a curiosity to see what was going on, and they brought up the topic that I had been bringing forward. There was a particular character in there who was adamantly denying and refusing to accept the facts of his reality. Now, I'm tired of this chaff-like behaviour. I'm tired of people determined to pull this whole thing back and halt any progress, in regards to furthering our understanding of reality and the mechanics of how it actually functions. So there seems to be a lot of snakes in the grass amongst us people, as always. But as always, I'm going to continually repeat until people get it. Because again, it's hugely important. I want this whole thing brought into the public arena as quickly as possible without any fluff and muck added into it. Okay, so it's in my interest that the majority of people grasp what it is I'm offering here. This is in regards to, the heliocentric globe cult, trying to sway everyone's attention by talk of how objects fall and the way in which they fall and what this globular earth is capable of, how the universe operates and how it works and its motions and its mechanics. Okay, now it's hugely relevant and hugely important to me because it's an existential story that's being fed to people, okay, giving them a faulty psychological foundation, a faulty foundation of an understanding in the mechanical principles of how reality actually operates. Now, when people are in that ignorance and under false understandings, that can be used against you. It can be to your detriment, which is very telling in regards to the society and the structures we have these days. So children are being fed bullshit, adults are swallowing the bullshit, adults are running around with pride, regurgitating and, with assurance that they understand and they know the whole universe and its mechanics. So, gravity is said to be a pulling force. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off showing some simplistic aspects of where people misunderstand and get confused about the mechanics of motion and the descriptors of the motion. Okay, so I'll start off with some simple things just that I recorded around the home earlier on today, and then we'll move into more progressive things like an internal combustion engine and how the mechanics are working there. We'll also have a look at gravity visualised, and we'll see what they're talking about in that regard. So I hope everybody's well. I see that there's people there. How are you all doing? I'm just going to cut right into this. So again, obviously there's people who, have grasped this. This is obviously no for you. This is for those who are a wee bit slow in the class, that are dragging their heels, that just don't want to get it. Okay? So, and again, the relevance of it and the importance of it is because you can stop this cult nonsense, this cult and its idiotic use of language, dead in its tracks when it's trying to invoke pseudoscience, forces that do not exist anywhere in the natural world. Not in the natural world and not on man's applications through an understanding of the natural processes. Okay? It doesn't exist anywhere. So we'll have a look at some common, examples where people think they have identified a force known as pull. Okay? So, let me just see here. Sharing that okay. People really struggle to understand. So we come towards the door, we open the door, and we bring it inwards. As we bring the door inwards, we say we pulled the door. Okay? And let's have a look at the physicality. Descriptors of the motion, but we're not interested in that. What we're interested in is the physicality. So as you can see, we have to apply a pressure downwards on the handle. We then put our hand here on the back side of the handle and apply a pressure in order to bring the door inwards. Same again when we are shutting the door, we have to push down on the handle. Even when I want to bring the handle back up the way, I have to apply the pressure on the underside here, like such. Very simple. And the same again here. We would say I pulled the drawer, I pushed the drawer, pulled the drawer, pushed the drawer. Physicality again is the exact same. I have to place my hand over the handle, now applying the force that has been exerted on the inner portion, and the drawer opens. Now I'm applying the pressure again to close the drawer. Pressure, pressure, pull, push. Pull and push describe pull coming towards, push going away. The physicality, applied pressure on the inside of the handle, open, applied pressure, close. Again, a similar situation. People would say I pulled the lever of the brake. So again, as you can see, hand is over, the pressure is now applied here, pushing. I can use my thumb to stabilise, so I have a pressure here, pushing in this direction. Hand over, applying pressure on the other side of the lever. And when this happens, pressure is applied to a piston internally here. That piston is then pushed, compressing the fluid inside. The fluid follows the line all the way down to the brake caliper. That pressure that is now converted through the fluid, and that pressure now applies to the internal pistons, which get pushed outwards, clamping the brake disc to slow the motion of the vehicle. Pointed down here at what I'm doing, right? So in the situation again, just to show people, you know, I'm just going to skip this wee part because I'm going to show this in a better video. In fact, I'm just going to play it and then I can go over it again anyway, so it doesn't matter. I just want to hammer the point home. People get really confused in regards to motion. So we understand that when we hook up a car, the hook would be applied like this. Okay, the same would be true on the other one. So the hook is applied here. Now, if we want to, what we would say, tow this car, the fundamental understanding, the principles of mechanics and motion, every aspect of the internal combustion engine is a push mechanism. One lever pushing on another lever to achieve what we call motion, right down to the tyres, which are pushing against the surface to give traction, friction, which will propel the car in a forward motion. Now, if we look at the situation here, as the car is accelerated forward, this is now catching on the back end of the car. The pressure is now being applied here, here, and here internally. So as that moves, we get an applied pressure here. Okay? The tension is then taken up to the other side of the cable. The pressure is now going to be applied inwards on the internal aspect of the pickup truck. So the pressure is coming from here, it's being transferred along, it's now coming here, and it's being applied internally to the inside of the truck. And that is what we call towing. Now, because it's behind the other vehicle, people have got a tendency to call it pull or towing. But what's actually happening is that it's a transfer of energy through this rope to this one. Every aspect of the internal combustion engine is a push mechanism transferred through the rope here internally to the back portion of this, and the pressure is now applied in this direction, creating a push. You're actually pushing on the vehicle like such. Okay. Now, the problem we have with gravity and its explanations is that it invokes a pulling. So, as I showed before in the case of the drawer, the way that they want to describe pulling to you is that I can just touch here and draw my hand backwards as if that's going to create some sort of motion. We always need the applied pressure here. Okay, if I was to attach my finger by super glue here, the drawer just becomes an extension of me, and as I draw my arm backwards, the drawer would come with me. Okay, so let's look at this. Again, as you can see it easier with the hook. The hook goes over the back. The pressure is now going to be applied on the inside. As I loop my finger in here, the pressure is now here on the inside portion of the U-bend. Okay, that's where the pressure is being applied. And as I apply that pressure, it's transferred along to the inner portion, and we get motion that people would describe as pull. The mechanics are applied pressure. Again, pressure on the inside of the U-bend here, applied pressure transferred to the inside of the handle, push. So as I was saying, gravity wants to make you think that without any interaction I can draw this towards myself. Okay? I would either have to glue this on here, or I would have to loop it around the back and apply pressure internally here and here. Apply the pressure, then we have the motion. So, how else could we visualise gravity? We'll have a wee look at that. We'll get to that in a minute. Again, something simple as lifting a cup, where people may struggle to understand. Hand goes in here. I'm now stabilising with this part of my finger here. I am pressing against it, and now I need to exert an upward motion. As I apply the upward motion, the cup wants to tilt forwards. That's why I have this stabilising finger, to give me leverage. And as I apply the pressure is being applied here, here and here. This one's only a stabiliser. These two fingers are exerting force in an upward direction on the internal part of the handle. Here, pushing and applied pressure yet again. But some other moron was asking this question: if I was hanging from a tree and I wanted to get somebody up the tree, then I would take Emma's hand, you curl your fingers in. So now we'll look at where the pressure's being applied. Keep your hand like that. The pressure's now being applied here on the inside of the hand as I come round, same as the drawer, same as the door, and I press against the inside. Now Emma has to apply the same pressure. So she has a pressure pushing on my fingers, I'm pushing on her fingers, and we can lock in. So hook your finger, like so. I can now create a motion internally here on the inside portion of the finger, the same as the inside portion of my finger. So, before we get to any other examples, let me just see here. So we'll move into some more complex. The very same thing applies here on the guitar. You know, Des, Sherwood has made a video regarding this as well. We talk about a hammer-on, a pull-off in the guitar, and you know, you get, just to make the point again, you know, if I just press on the string, what I have to do in order to pull off is I have to apply the pressure. I then have to exert a force in this direction. Same things applying. Apply pressure. Pressure exerted in that direction, creating like a hook on the string. Described as a pull-off, when in reality the mechanics of what's actually happening is an applied pressure straight onto the fretboard, and then I apply pressure in that direction. So, a few wee quick examples. Let me just see here. What we get here is what people would call a pull-up. Well, again, you have to just look at the mechanics here. If you can just see the arrow of the mouse, the hand comes over the top of the bar. The force being exerted is now in the downwards direction on the top portion of the bar. Pressure is then exerted downwards, pushing against the bar, and if you can push with enough force, enough energy, you can elevate yourself upwards.
Pull-up is one of the best exercises you can do. It's functional and involves a lot of muscles. To get the most out of it and make your pull-ups perfect.
So another wee quick example there. Get rid of this. Okay, let me just have a wee look here. So, as I say, I'm not going to bother, showing the whole principles of the internal combustion engine. Anybody who is, want to understand the reality can understand the mechanical principles. Any machine, any motion being created, particularly in something like an engine, it's one mechanism pressing against another mechanism. In fact, I'm going to leave them up here and we'll come back to that. Okay, so here is, again, I'm just going to show this, another example of towing, just to ram the point right home. So in this case here,
you can attach to that. You cock the tow bar, not the tow ball.
So the rope, as you can see, is being applied around the back here. Now when the car is propelled forward using the push apply pressure principles, the car goes forward. It then presses on the inside portion of the rope. The rope presses back on the inside of the plate at the back here, and you have a resistance, okay? The force being applied is a pressure in the forward direction to the internal part of the rope, which is then translated through the rope.
Because any sort of windscreen, the carabiner attached that. If you find a towing eye right here in the eye is not visible and retrieve it.
The same here again on the car being towed. That energy transfer is coming along here. It's then applying a pressure on the inside of the towing eye, or the inner wall, pushing on the inner wall to propel the car forwards. Very simple. Some people just fail to grasp the simplicity of reality and what's actually happening. So, we'll just see here. Have we got any deniers in so far? Everybody quite happy, understand what's actually going on? I'll just wait a wee minute to see if we get any denial. Exactly, flat chord music, it's the same with drumming. Any motion that you can look at, if you slow it down and look at where the applied pressure is, remember we're talking about the mechanics, not the descriptor, talking about the force and where it's being applied. You will see that in the case of drumsticks, drumming. Nothing's pulling them down, magnets pull. Magnets don't pull. There's no such thing as pull. We'll get to magnets. Chris says you're at it. Stuart Lundy, have a look at your piano vid. I'll open you up in a wee second. Oh, let me just see. Let's have a wee look at this. So Stuart Lundy's made one in regards to piano. Just double check I'm sharing that, okay.
Video just to highlight the mechanics of push within a piano. The other night I was in the chat room on Dell's last hangout, and I said that I require to push on the keys to make a sound come out of the piano. And someone came back, I don't know who it was, I think it was that moron who was actually on Dell's hangout, came back and said, well, when you press the key, it then pulls the hammer towards the string. No, it doesn't. So we're going to go for this key here, because it's on the end. Happens to be an E, if anyone's interested. So, okay, I apply pressure here, yeah, which pushes the hammer forward onto the string. So the applied pressure starts here. It goes through to this part here. You can see that? There. The pressure is now applied here, which therefore pushes this up. And the counterbalance all at the same time, which therefore strikes the string. There's no pull involved. The whole action is push. Yeah? Can we get that one for this idiot who was in the fucking chat box? I don't know how people can't see this. I really don't.
Neither they are, Stuart.
Push. Applied pressure here. Applied pressure then transfers here, pushing the hammer up. If I want to play quieter, I can press this pedal here. I push this pedal here. I'll get down and show you. Pushing this down. Therefore the pressure is now here on this bolt and plate here, which therefore pushes down this beam. And at the other end, the applied pressure is now here on this rod that's attached, which therefore pushes the rod up, which comes up to here, which then puts pressure on this part here, which then pushes all the hammers forward. Yeah? No pulling involved whatsoever. Push. Push here. Pressure is now applied here, pushing the rod down, which then pushes that up, which pushes on this, which pushes all the hammers forward. Yeah? There. So if I want it even quieter than that, I can push this middle pedal here. Again, I'll show you. Push it here, which now pushes this rod upwards, like so, which then gives pressure to this beam here, which then pushes it up to along here, which allows that rod here to fall, which this one falls, and then the applied pressure here, which is this metal piece which is screwed into this bar here, to push that down. So as you can see, the whole bar will come down. So it can be, so push the bar down, it muffles it for practice purposes. So as you can see, there's absolutely no pull involved in the mechanics of a piano. The whole system is push, applied pressure. Okay?
Excellent demonstration, Stuart Lundy. Appreciate you, my man. So let's have a wee look at something else here. Where are we? So here we have a tensile strength test where people will say this is going to be pulled apart, when in reality the mechanics of the motion in order to achieve the tension test is an applied pressure at both ends, which is why they have an inclined plane at both ends, and we will see in a minute where it locks into the mechanism.
It has a cylindrical test region with an original diameter of 10mm and an original gauge length of 100mm. Within this test region, distance marks have been drawn at regular intervals. They help to visualise and measure the plastic behaviour of the specimen. Using a hand control, the tester moves the upper crosshead into its correct...
Even the mechanical motions of this machine is either going to be some sort of hydraulic, so it'll be a pressure on a fluid, or it's going to be on some sort of inclined plane, like a screw mechanism, like, you know, a ramp and a garage repair centre. You know, every single aspect of our applied daily living is showing us these fundamental facts.
Starting position. Now he can place the threaded ends of the test piece in the lower and upper grip.
So as you can see, you have the inclined plane here, and you also have the same here, the part that's going to hold the component. Now it locks in there. Now this portion here will be pressed downwards. So as it comes downwards, these inclined portions here are going to press on the upper parts of the screw here, here, and here, and it's going to press downwards. You have to have the inclined plane because that's going to give you better friction, better grip, okay? Because the motion has to be in the downwards direction. It's going to press against the top part at each lip, pressing it down. The same is going to be true at the top, only it's in the opposite direction. It's all going to lock in together. The top one is going to be pushed upwards. This one is going to be pushed downwards, and the strain is going to be met in the centre.
Grips of the testing machine.
And you can see it being locked in. Same with the piece that's just been slid in there. Inclined plane within it internally, locking in to the inclined plane on the material being tested, so that you have perfect grip. It's not going to slip.
In the next step,
Even the mechanics here of how he's tensioning and tightening these things, you can see where the applied pressure is being had. Look, here, hand over the lever, applying the pressure in this direction, pushing on it. Here, pushing in this direction. Same again, over the top, applying the pressure in this direction and applying the pressure here in that direction.
Next step, he swings the extensometer into its working position and checks that everything is correctly prepared. The material axis, the force right accompanied by after a certain strain, known as the Ludo strain, its strain hardens uniformly along its length. This means,
as you can see here, this is being stretched because this bottom portion is probably static. This portion is being pressed upwards. Remember, the inclined planes are what given the friction, the grip, so that when this is pressed in the motion of up, it grips that, applying the pressure on the inclined plane internally in an upwards manner. Applied pressure
means that the test piece gets longer and thinner but keeps a cylindrical shape.
This is being pushed apart. In the physical terms, not the descriptor that common people use, the mechanical physicality is that it is being pushed in that direction, upwards.
As soon as the maximum force is reached, a neck begins to form at one point of the test piece. All further plastic deformation now only takes place at the neck, and eventually the test piece fractures there.
Pushed apart. So, I can get rid of that. Okay, so let's have another wee look. You know, people talk about suction. And people think suction is like a force of pull. Again, a misunderstanding of what is actually going on. So we'll take, you know, something that, you know, can be applied to everybody's life, that everybody would understand. That being a vacuum cleaner. Okay, when you sip soda through a straw, you are utilising the simplest of all suction mechanisms. Sucking the soda up causes a pressure drop between the bottom of the straw and the top of the straw. With greater fluid pressure at the bottom than the top, the soda is pushed up to your mouth. This is the same basic mechanism at work in a vacuum cleaner. Though the execution is a bit more complicated in this article, we'll look inside a vacuum cleaner to find out how it puts suction to work when cleaning up dust and debris in your house. Blah, blah. So, when you plug the vacuum cleaner and turn it on, is what happens. The electric current operates the motor. Again, the motor which spins the brush. Again, inclined planes, cogs, levers. It is one mechanism applying a pressure to another mechanism in order to achieve motion. Okay? In this case, the motor is attached to a fan, which has angled blades like an aeroplane propeller. As the fan blades turn, they force air forwards, pushing toward the exhaust port. Check out how airplanes work to find out what causes this. When air particles are driven forward, the density of the particles and therefore the air pressure increases in front of the fan and decreases behind the fan. The pressure drop behind the fan is just like the pressure drop in the straw. When you sip from a drink, the pressure level in the area behind the fan drops below the pressure level outside of the vacuum cleaner, the ambient air pressure. This creates suction, a partial vacuum inside the vacuum cleaner. The ambient air pushes itself into the vacuum cleaner through the intake port because the air pressure inside the vacuum cleaner is lower than the pressure outside. As long as the fan is running and the passageway through the vacuum cleaner remains open, there is a constant stream of air moving through the intake port and out the exhaust port. But how does the flowing stream of air collect the dirt and debris from your carpet? The key principle is friction. So like a vacuum cleaner, a turbo mechanism and an engine is the exact same. Okay, you have hot air driving a turbine which then creates a variance in pressure, which drives air faster into, you know, the combustion chamber. Because the more that you can get in there, the more explosive it's going to be. Because as that seals up and the valve closes, you have more gas in there. As the piston comes back up, there's more resistance, it creates more pressure. Okay? And as the spark ignites, bang, you have a massive explosion, driving the piston back down again. Okay, we saw that suction created by a vacuum cleaner's rotating fan creates a flow stream of air moving through the intake port and out the exhaust port. The stream of air acts like a stream of water. So you can understand this as water. We're going to get to that in regards to gravity visualised. The moving air particles rub against any loose dust or debris as they move. And if the debris is light enough and the suction is strong enough, the friction carries the material through the inside of the vacuum cleaner. So it works under that principle, and it's friction based. As the air rushes in, it's applying pressure on the debris that's lying on the floor and pushes it into the lower pressure chamber. Okay, that's the physicality of what's actually going on there. So just to eradicate other people coming up with all this rubbish about suckiness. I don't need that now. We can forget about the internal combustion engine. I can come back to that if people really need that. But any mechanics out there, anybody with an understanding of machinery knows that any machine will have one component pressing on another component, and it's a continuous chain of that. You break any of that cycle, your machine doesn't work. Every aspect has to be working. One part pressing on another part. So I'm just going to leave that just now because I'm going to run out of time. So now let's get a wee look here. I don't need that either. Just I'll make another wee point in regards to differential. Let's make sure I'm sharing this. Again, understanding the principles of levers, we can formulate technologies that work to our benefit.
It is called the differential because it can drive the rear wheels at different speeds. The differential looks complicated, but once we understand its principle, it is amazingly simple. These two wheels are mounted on separate axles and supported by a frame, so that they can revolve freely at different speeds. Let's fasten a spoke on the inner end of each axle, so that by turning the spokes, we can turn each wheel separately.
And as you can see, the mechanics and where he's applying the pressure will always be on whatever direction he wants it to go. It's going to be in the opposite side. So if he wants that to go downwards, he's going to apply the pressure here. If he wants it to come towards you, he's going to apply the pressure on the other side.
With a bar or crosspiece, we can turn both wheels in the same direction.
Again, you can see here on the other side of these two bars, this bar is resting on the away from you, the other side, which is away from where you're looking at. And it's applying a pressure on that side of it coming towards you. He is applying the pressure at the back of that, pressing on it to bring it towards you.
At the same rate of speed. Let's get something to hold this bar in place so that it will press against the spokes. Notice that this support is not locked to the axle. It turns freely. Now we can spin the wheels by rotating the support. This is fine, as long as both wheels are able to turn at the same speed. But
watch his hand here, always on the opposite side, applying the pressure to achieve the motion. He's now applying it here in this direction, and as he comes up and over, he's going to be applying it on the reverse side to push it downwards.
See what happens when we go around the corner.
Look, see, now he's switched to the thumb on the back side of the bar and applying the pressure on the other side of the bar.
With this arrangement, we cannot drive one wheel faster than the other. And if we stop one wheel, the other wheel won't budge. Let's put this bar on a pivot so that it can swing in either direction. Now, the bar can still turn both wheels at the same speed. And because it pivots, it lets one wheel turn even when the other is stopped. But if turned too far, the bar will swing around until it won't drive the spokes that turn it.
Because contact's been lost. Again, there is nothing applying any pressure anywhere, so nothing's going to happen. It has to remain connected at all times.
Either wheel. We need another crossbar and more spokes to carry on the job. When we stop one wheel, the crossbars will continue to push the spokes of the free wheel around. As long as both wheels...
Now watch carefully. The bar is always coming into contact, applying the pressure.
Wheels are free to turn. The bars do not swing on their pivot, and the wheels move at the same speed. Now we have the working principles of a differential. To adapt the model for use in an automobile, we will have to make a few changes. In order to reduce the jerky action caused by wide spaces between the spokes, we will put in more spokes.
Again, in that example, perfect. As it goes forwards and backwards, you can see where the pressure's being applied here, and then it's going to be applied on the internal aspect part of that rod there. Constantly. Bang.
We will put in
bang.
more spokes. Further filling in the spaces between the spokes gives steadier, more continuous action, and changing the shape gives firm, constant contact. Now we can make the gears thicker and stronger, and we have differential gears. The edges are cut so that they will fit together more smoothly and silently, and another gear is added to share the work of driving the axles.
So, excellent engineering stuff, sees there. The point's been made pretty clear, I'm sure. If you're still failing to understand and grasp it at this point, I think you're beyond help. Okay? You're either really stupid and will never get it, or you're being woefully ignorant and deceptive, actively denying how reality works. Okay? So, I see Dan Pratt talking about magnets. So, let's have a wee look now when they talk about gravity, and they invoke gravity as a force that pulls and creates motion and acceleration. Okay, this is where we start to see pseudoscience at play. This, again, is where we start to see claims being made that are contrary to every single facet of your being. So, what have you to do? Ignore that because people are giving you an image on a TV and a mathematical description and explanation to follow? No. That's not how it works for me. I go with practicality, how reality actually functions, what can be demonstrated in a practical fashion. Now, as far as I can tell, in any given circumstance, there is no such thing as non-contact pulling forces. We're going to have a look at magnetism. Now, for me, and what I can understand so far, there's a flow, a direction to magnetism that works under the same principles. Just some other energy, some other force, but it is the exact same. Now, I showed this the other night, and I'm going to show it again to help you understand what I mean when I'm saying this. Because, again, what happens with, globe zealots, they will try and use a false equivalence or a misrepresent or, latch on to some other physicality in order to try and give sway to their nonsensical gibberish of pulling forces, creating acceleration and motion. So here we have an analog example okay, of the very same things that you've just seen. A pressure is going to be applied to one end here of this rack. Okay, so he's going to apply the pressure here, bringing it in this direction. This tooth here is going to come into contact with this part of the cog here, and it's going to press against it, driving it upwards, creating that motion. Okay? Same in reverse.
Well, of course, mechanical things are easy to understand. But when we make it magnetic, it's a little less obvious. But we put in a row of horseshoe magnets, and the action, as you see, is very similar.
Now you can see there is no direct contact that we can witness here, like in any of the other examples. But the exact same thing's happening. So there's a flow of energy that's having an interaction with this material here, that's driving it, applying a pressure to it in order to make it move.
Indeed. This, then, we call a rack and pinion motor.
Same in reverse.
Now, in a linear motor,
So, point made there. Now, let's have a wee look here. What does gravity do? Every object in space exerts a gravitational pull on every other, and so gravity influences the path taken by everything travelling through space. So what do they mean? Let's see if we can get some other example. Let's see what this guy's got to say. Now again, when we look at these examples, they're using materials, okay, practicality, to try and reference some imaginative, nonsensical gibberish. Now in this case here, this is similar to like a whirlpool. We can understand the physical aspect, the physicality of motion being created in a whirlpool. So he's going to try and hijack that in order to lend weight to what he calls gravity.
What he predicted was black holes, and let me show you how you can explain what black holes are all about.
How you can explain what a nonsensical mathematical construct looks like and how it functions. This here is a planar, okay?
This equipment over here. This is a 4-pound ball, which I will put in my fabric of space-time. And
now, in this scenario here, this here is applying a pressure downwards because it's weight. This can't support, it's not got the rigidity to support it. So it's applying a pressure and stretching the fabric. Okay? Now this here is in no way, shape or form anything like what they're trying to utilise and describe as gravity. If it is, then it's something totally different from what they've been insisting for all this time. Because what this is like a whirlpool. In the case of a whirlpool, you can see a directional flow like the magnetism. Okay, now if I was to place a feather or a piece of wood or anything in here, it's going to be pushed by the oncoming water that's gone in this direction. Okay, and it's going to be pushed inwards into this region here. Okay, you can see the flow of it, just like in the magnetism. For me, the magnetism is working in the exact same. Okay, it's just a different type of energy that we're witnessing, but the mechanical interactions and the aspects of everything else are exactly the same. We're not going to get to some point in reality where it all goes totally different and we have cartoon, fantastical, fantasy physics at play. That's just not how it is. So you can see here an object on the surface here being pushed and propelled by the flow that's coming behind it and pushing on it in order to bring it into this region. See it? Those bubbles. So what they're talking about with gravity is a talk of some sort of ether that's being affected, that's creating a flow. Just like in a body of water. If you put your hand in and you push the water and you continually push, you're going to create that sort of directional flow of energy. So they're trying to visualise some sort of ether. Is this what they're talking about with space-time and all this gibberish? Because what's space-time? A no thing. Non-fabric. Something that you can't demonstrate. See here.
You can see that it curves it a certain amount over there.
It curves the material. It curves that fabric. Again, this is two-dimensional. This isn't three-dimensional space stuffs here, son.
Your ball would curve it more. A ball that's not so much would curve it less. But the point
So as you can see, like in the case of the whirlpool, is this what they're trying to utilise and invoke to give some sort of visual representation? Are we talking about flows and currents that create motion? Right?
This is that 4 pounds of ball curves the space like that. It doesn't matter how I get 4 pounds over there. Out here, it will still curve it the same amount. So, if
Now, what about in 3 dimensions and all the other space? Where's it all bending into? A black hole at the centre of a sphere where there's nothing? And then where does it go? See, this is the problem. They have real difficulty trying to visualise the mathematical concepts in 3 dimensions because it's totally absurd. They can only show you in a planar fashion because that's what we understand. That's how we understand reality. Just like the example of the whirlpool. If you create that spin, you get a flow that comes inwards and spirals inwards like a vortex to the central point where there's still stuff. Anything that's caught in that flow is propelled, pressed, pushed inwards.
it still was 4 pounds, it would be a lot smaller over here, but out here, it would be exactly the same. Or if I took that other ball, ball and like really...
Nonsense. Total and utter gibberish. Shut up, Gem Panda. I couldn't give a fuck how many people are watching, you utter cretin. I'm sick and tired of reality denying, incompetent, willfully ignorant retards like you, son. Right? There's no escaping reality. It doesn't care about your idiocy, son. The amount of screaming and crying and kicking your heels is ever going to change that. And people like me will never ever stop representing how it actually works. You and your religious doctrine are fucked. It's nonsensical, absolute drivel. Police forces, but I can bring stuff towards me without any interaction whatsoever. All you can do is misrepresent. Try and clutch onto some, false equivalence and present it to try and lend credence to your fantasy. You just don't understand the mechanics of motion, son, or acceleration. You don't care about it. All you care about is protecting a narrative. You, son, are a government lickspittle. There's no tolerance here anymore for any of you creepy weirdos. Any claims that any of you fuds are making, you better start coming up with practical references. Know your faulty understanding of the mechanics of motion. Actual practical references. I want a description of pull, and then I want a practical reference of pull. Chop chop, run along. Not interested in pseudoscience. I don't care about how many viewers are here. The majority of people are only interested in fucking talking about people. Mindless drivel. I'm interested in what reality is and how the fuck we get out of this situation. People that you are hell-bent on keeping us in it. You're a weak little man, and so are the rest of you who are the same ilk. Weak. So all these people, oh, pool, well, I'm sticking to pool because that's what I know. You're just ignorant. You don't understand, you don't care about the mechanics of reality. Your idiocy is allowing these creepy weirdos to run about making assertions about forces achieving motion and acceleration that are just nonsensical. Pseudoscience. You get 15 minutes to come in here with any rebuttals to what's been presented to you and a practical demonstration of, if you still want to assert there's a pulling force, you better come in with a practical reference. If you don't, I'm just going to eject you immediately. I'm not talking about anything else. I don't want to hear about your Chinese whispers or your gossip. I'm not interested in any of it. Practical reference or nothing. "15 minutes, reality deniers." That's what you've got. It couldn't be made any more simpler for you. Anybody else that's involved in this discussion should be understanding this. Do your work. So if you're going to get involved in discussions about gravity or any of this nonsense, you should be equipped with this. Anybody that's going to invoke gravity, ask them what it does. It pulls. Describe pull. Give me a practical reference for pull. How does the mechanical functions of pull actually work? Watch them descend into chaos, denial. Let's have it. "15 minutes. Just for anybody that's watching this, we have active globe cult zealots. So let's see if they're going to still deny the mechanics of motion and acceleration and assert that gravity is a pulling force. How does this gravity work? Does it have invisible tentacles that come out and glue themselves onto the front face of objects and then retract like a winch in order to bring it towards a central point? Or does it have invisible tentacles that go around the back of objects, applying a pressure, bringing it towards a central point? Because that's the only way it would be possible. Again, this psychological nonsense, this is again where you would see people who are operating from ego, who are interested in popularity, interested in having celebrity status and all that jobby. I do not give a rat's ass for any of that stuff. Never have. Couldn't care less. It's of no interest to me whatsoever. Establishing the facts is what is of interest to me. The majority of people are not interested in facts because the majority of people have religious biases, subjective biases, and they ignore and omit things that don't fit their wee faulty worldviews. Okay? I'm not interested in any of that.
Losing my hair over this flat earth thing, though.
Shut up, you. Have you got are you into talk about the what's been presented here?
No.
Right, piss off, son.
The echo chamber, call it.
How's it an echo chamber? You're in here given the opportunity. I've just gave a presentation. Now, do you agree or disagree with what's been presented?
Is there a third option?
Do you agree or disagree with what's being presented?
I agree.
Right. See you later.
See, it's an echo chamber.
Do you still believe in gravity?
No.
Good. Ta-ta. I hope anybody that was struggling with this grasps it now. It's hugely important in regards to this cult and its lunacy and its idiotic claims that it's invoking and making. An echo chamber. I go into the street. I invite people openly. Every time I do a presentation, I open up. Give people ample opportunity to describe and present with practical reference the claims that they're making. I'm not sitting here in a wee bitch circle protecting my subjective biases. People can disagree. There's a methodology, an approach to disagreement. If you're mannered and respectful, I will listen to what you've got to say. When you're just an active troll, I've got no patience for you. Why do things fall? Because they are pulled. No such thing as pull. No such thing. There's no force known as pull anywhere. So, again, no such thing. Can't be demonstrated in any way, shape or form. But the globe earth gets a buy. It can start invoking whatever it likes. Nah. Not interested in this God of the gaps nonsense. Oh, I've got a blank spot in my nonsense. I'll just say a word and hope that I can pass it off. And then I'll use a false equivalence and a misrepresentation to try and give credence to my idiotic pish. Gideon, fuck's sake, I've just showed you examples. There's your fucking car. There's the eyelet of the car. There's your fucking hand, your finger. It goes over like that. It's not applying a pressure there to the internal aspect. Pushing on it. You people are fucking thick. Thick. I'm just going to shut that in case that knob jockey's done anything to that hangout. I've got 10 minutes left. You think they'd be rushing in here with practical demonstrations of pulling forces? None exists. Wonderful. Silence. Defeat. Right. Pulling is only a word to describe something coming closer to something else. You brought it towards yourself. The mechanical application, the application of the force, that being applied pressure is what you're interested in. Where does that happen? Oh, AD left that news, getting it, that's it. Exactly. Jim Panda's talking about popularity contests on YouTube. The globe cult is dwindling. All that's got left is bottom of the barrel scumballs like you, son. That's all it has. Scumbags. It's dead. No way back for it. Over. No amount of images and mathematical equations is ever going to change the mechanical functions of reality. Sorry. No way and cry into your pillow. Cheers, Bill. As John C. Oddity, it's a simplified explanation for the sheep, but it gives a faulty understanding of reality, in particular motion, as we've seen. You see the difficulty people have understanding the simplicity of motion. Because this faulty wiring, that push and pull are two separate things. They're no. Any motion requires an applied pressure, 100% of the time. All these globe cults need to push their wee pants up. Well, Tony Dixon, it makes you wonder. As I say, I seen that hangout from the other evening, and it's like, it's almost like an ego thing. Maybe they just don't want to give credit. I'm not interested in credit. What I'm interested in is people understanding it, and then adopting it, and standing by it, with an understanding of how it actually works, representing it, so that they can clear up the muck that's going on surrounding them. But a lot of people are not interested. They're interested in wee bitch circles, where you've got active agents in there, sowing bullshit. I'd seen Skyfly Brian that hangout the other night, trying to say I was talking about them in some negative light. Just wasn't the case. But you see how they're operating. They're talking about this aspect of push as some sort of divide. I've seen it in my comments. No, it's not. It's clarifying reality and how it works. The divide's happening where people are being played off of each other in regards to personality contests. Wee bitches in sowing fucking seeds in people's ear holes so that people are now casting judgment on you, the character, the person, and ignoring any of the content that you've got on offer. That's how they're operating. And these wee stupid hangouts that people like Jamie Brown and that are having are fueling it, giving place for it to happen. They don't draw lines in the sand and stand by the objective facts. It's sickening. You don't have to like me. I'm not interested in you liking me. Smarten yourself up and start grasping onto what the actual facts are. Because your wee bitchy community circles are not going to achieve anything. All you're doing is facilitating grounds for these morons to come in and sow division. Jamie Brown is just one of many. Well, I'm not actively engaged in sorting out objectivity. It's a pissing contest about personalities and characters and who they don't like and who they like. No, that's shit. You should have got over that by the time you were leaving the fucking playground. Some people just don't. It's not about Jamie Brown. As I say, the only reason I seen that was curiosity because I stumbled across it the other evening. And lo and behold, they brought up the topic of push-pull. Now they had a character in there trying to just poo-poo it and go, I'm just sticking to pull because that's what I know. And there was another guy there, I can't remember his name, trying to explain to him the mechanics, and he's just not interested. Just actively dismissing it. Get it away, get it away, get it away. That's deliberate. Now, people like Jamie Brown facilitate and allow that to happen. So anybody that comes across and hears that are going to be swayed and affected by it. And these clowns want to call themselves skeptics, truthers, investigators. Bullshit. Utter bullshit.
Hi, Dale. How's it going?
Hello.
This is Bon. I finally got to listen in for the whole show. It's nice.
Cool, mate.
I was just thinking while you're giving your presentation is that of how strong every animal is than gravity. Right? Gravity can't pull down a helium balloon. But for us humans, man, we can pull it down like it's nothing.
You need to be careful with that word pull though, and gravity. As I say, I'm not interested in this pull nonsense. There's no such a force. We're talking about forces, you know. So forces is applied pressure. That's what creates motion and acceleration. So gravity is just nonsensical drivel when they're invoking it as some sort of force that pulls. That's just gibberish.
Yeah, it's just interesting to see how it would start. I wonder if it started before Newton, because I mean, okay, things fall, so let's give it a name. It's people who are just saying things fall go. Well, it's just falling.
It's hugely important for their nonsensical model. They require it to be the central hub of their whole shebang. They need this central aspect of a non-geometric non-entity that can pull stuff towards it, which is why they've got these visual representations of the warping and bending of space-time, but they can only show it on a planar aspect, two-dimensional. So, you know, they don't show it in 3 dimensions because it's nonsense.
Do you wonder why they never call things that float up like anti-gravity? How come they just call it just lighter than air so it floats?
Exactly.
Or they never call it anti-gravity.
No.
Yeah,
No.
So, I mean, they didn't come up with the phenomenon when things go the opposite direction.
No. And as I pointed out before, you know, you get bubbles that accelerate upwards. So they've got loads of issues. But my main concern right now is eradicating this nonsensical idea of pull being some sort of force. It doesn't exist. And as long as people grasp that, that's all I care about. You know?
Yeah.
So.
But that would just take... I mean, it's not like anyone can go to school and get away from it. They have to do their own research, their own studying, and their own thinking in order to come up with that conclusion.
Yeah.
Or watching you and other people out there explain it and saying, hey, this doesn't add up the way that they explain it in academia or government, whatever.
Well, that's it. You've hit the nail on the head, mate. Hopefully, you know, more people will grasp this and start representing it. You know, as I say, clear the muck out of this whole topic of discussion and get rid of it. You know, we can put it to bed. You can't invoke pulling forces. It doesn't exist. So gravity's done. Dead as a dodo. End of.
Yeah. Another problem is, and I found a great quote from, I think it was this morning actually, and it was actually from Leonardo da Vinci, because I was thinking how every time it seems like we try to have a debate with a globe earther, it's not a debate. They don't think it's a debate. It's just one-sided. It's a globe, so it's not a debate. And so his quote is,
Well, that's fanaticism, zealotry. You know, that's what they are. They're just blinded ignorantly by a belief, and they don't care whether that belief adds up or no. They're just emotionally invested in it and too weak to ever let go of it. It's a sign of serious weakness from these people.
Yeah. All right, here's the quote from Leonardo da Vinci. Whoever in debate quotes authority uses not intellect, but memory. Isn't that a good one?
Excellent.
Because that's what they are. They're just quoting, they're just rehashing from memory what the authority says.
Yeah.
You don't use their intellect.
Exactly. So, well, listen, mate, I'm going to go and watch this game. You know, I've gave them 15 minutes. None of them took the opportunity. So I'm going to get off now and just end it there.
Alright, thank you, Del.
Cheers, my man.
Cheers.
As I say, put it to use, people. Don't just take my examples or believe any of this. It's all practically referenced. Have a look at it yourself. Mess about with your reality. Try and break it. If you can break it, bring it to me. Let me see it. That's how we understand reality. That's proper peer reviewing. So, go away, see what you can find for yourself. Utilise what's been shown to you here this evening and then formulate an understanding off your own back so that you have a knowing of how motion's created in objects. So, appreciated everybody. I'll catch you very soon.